culture paints the Roaring Twenties as one endless glamorous party, flappers spinning in sequins, champagne cascading from fountains, and jazz echoing through opulent ballrooms. But reality was far more intense and perilous than the movies suggest. When Prohibition began in 1920, it didn't end America's drinking habits. It simply drove them underground, igniting one of the most explosive and dangerous nightlife eras in history. Suddenly, the nation's social scene shifted beneath everyone's feet. It's January 1920. You wake in a cramped Chicago boarding house, the sheets rough and scratchy, the mattress lumpy with horsehair. The radiator hisses but barely heats the freezing room, and outside snow dusts the streets as Model Ts honk past horse-drawn milk wagons. The air smells of coal smoke and wet pavement. The world feels caught between eras, part Victorian, part modern, on the edge of transformation. The newspaper headlines confirm it. The 18th Amendment is now law, making the manufacture, sale, and transport of alcohol illegal nationwide. At breakfast, fellow tenants buzz about the dry era, trading jokes and whispered tips about hidden bars. Within days, secret drinking dens called speakeasies begin sprouting everywhere. What started as obscure, illicit bars become the very heartbeat of American nightlife. Legal saloons close, but behind locked doors and whispered passwords, the party only grows louder. Soon, neighborhoods transform. Pharmacies hide back rooms stocked with liquor. Tailor shops add secret basement entrances. Anonymous doors open into jazz clubs pouring bootleg gin. Within 5 years, New York would host nearly 30,000 speakeasies, with Chicago, your city, thriving just as wildly. By February, friends invite you to your first underground bar. You knock on a plain wooden door, murmur the password, and descend a narrow staircase. Cigarette smoke, laughter, and distant jazz drift upward. Inside, you find elegance. White-clothed tables, a small dance floor, and a 4-piece band playing trumpet, saxophone, piano, and drums. Men in sharp suits and women in sequin dresses sip tea and coffee from delicate cups, though everyone knows better. Your first taste of bootleg liquor is harsh. The beer's flat, the whiskey burns, and the gin, best not to ask. Much of it is bathtub-made, cheap grain alcohol mixed with water and juniper oil, sometimes dangerously spiked with industrial chemicals. Fatal alcohol poisoning skyrocket, yet people keep drinking, drawn by the thrill of rebellion and the promise of forbidden freedom. For the first time, men and women drink together publicly. Before, saloons were male-only zones. Now, women not only enter but dominate the nightlife, becoming flappers, bold, bob-haired, cigarette-smoking icons who defy societal norms. Inside these hidden spaces, the rigid social divides of America blur. Immigrants drink beside elites, college students mingle with gangsters, and white audiences flock to black jazz clubs, enthralled by the music revolution unfolding around them. Jazz thrives here, nurtured by speakeasies empowered by legends like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and Bessie Smith. By 1925, Chicago is buzzing with innovation, creativity, and racial mixing that both captivates and scandalizes the old order. But behind the glamour, darker forces rise. Organized crime seizes control of the liquor trade. Al Capone, freshly relocated from New York, begins building an empire in Chicago, soon raking in today's equivalent of nearly $1 billion. Rival gangs erupt into bloody wars, hijacking shipments and executing enemies in broad daylight. By the mid-1920s, Chicago alone averages more than 500 gang-related murders annually. Corruption spreads through every layer of society. Police, judges, and politicians all take their cut, ensuring many raids are nothing more than theatrical performances. As you settle deeper into this world, the slang becomes second nature. Whiskey is tea. Beer is near beer. Police are Johnny Law. To be drunk is to be spifflicated or zozzled. Nights blur into routine, and your favorite speakeasy begins to feel like home. You know the bartenders, the bands, the regulars. The initial danger fades, but the risk never disappears. One October night, flappers sweep into the room, laughing loudly, their short skirts, bold lipstick, and fearless attitudes commanding attention. They embody a new age, not just of style, but of power. Women have won the right to vote, and many now demand seats in government, pushing boundaries everywhere. The Roaring Twenties are no mere party. They're a revolution disguised in sequins and jazz. What began as a moral crusade to purify society instead created an underground culture of rebellion, corruption, and innovation. Beneath the glitz lies danger, freedom, and transformation. And as winter settles over Chicago, your secret nights and smoky basements are only just beginning. On a snowy December night, chaos erupts inside the speakeasy. Two men at the bar start shouting, voices rising until one suddenly pulls a gun. The entire room freezes. The band cuts off mid-song, leaving only tense silence as the man cocks his revolver. The owner steps in, speaking calmly, somehow diffusing the standoff. The weapon disappears, the man is escorted out, and the band resumes playing, but the atmosphere stays heavy. This isn't just speakeasy drama. It's a glimpse into the constant danger of a world where law exists more in theory than in practice. As 1920 ends, you reflect on how much life has transformed in just 1 year. Prohibition was meant to stop drinking, yet it's made alcohol more desirable than ever, turning it into an act of rebellion and reshaping American social life. Speakeasies have become the new cultural hubs where traditional boundaries, gender, class, even race, begin to blur under the haze of jazz and bootleg liquor. What you're witnessing is the birth of modern American nightlife, and it's only the beginning. The next decade promises even more transformation. Speakeasy culture will evolve. Cocktails will be invented to disguise the bitterness of cheap liquor. Fashion will adapt to match the new freedom of movement, and music will explode into bold, uncharted territory. On New Year's Eve 1920, the speakeasy is packed to bursting. Smoke clouds the air, the band plays frantically, and couples whirl across the crowded dance floor, showing off the latest steps. Bootleg champagne flows despite its questionable quality. At midnight, a roar erupts. 1921 has arrived. Nobody cares that alcohol is still illegal. In fact, the secrecy makes the celebration even more electric. There's an unspoken unity in the defiance, a sense of being part of something rebellious and new. You raise your coffee cup filled with whiskey, clink glasses with friends, and the band launches into a wild jazz number. A stranger grabs your hand, pulling you into the chaos. "Happy New Year, honey," she shouts over the music. "Here's to whatever comes next." What comes next is a decade of contradictions, excess and innovation, rebellion and reinvention. The trumpet player hits a piercing note that seems to hang in the air as the drummer pounds harder, driving the dancers into a frenzy. A young woman nearby demonstrates a new move, her feet tapping out impossibly quick rhythms. One by one, others copy her. This is how culture spreads in 1920s America, person to person, night after night, in secret rooms the law can't touch. Outside, a policeman strolls past the entrance, deliberately looking away. Everyone knows the arrangement. His payoff will come tomorrow. Inside, your friend leans close, shouting over the music. "There's a new place opening next week. Rumor has it they've got girls dancing the Charleston. You in?" The following afternoon, you wander Chicago's streets, the winter sun cutting long shadows between towering buildings. A department store window display catches your eye. Short dresses, straight silhouettes, beads, fringe, and strands of pearls. Gone are the corsets and floor-length gowns. This is the new look of 1922, and it's stirring controversy. An older woman beside you scoffs, muttering, "Disgraceful. In my day, no decent lady showed her knees." You just smile, knowing times are changing fast. Inside the department store, the women's section buzzes with energy. Shopgirls display the latest flapper fashions, while a cosmetics counter offers rouges and lipsticks once considered scandalous. A young salesgirl with a sleek bob and bold lipstick approaches. "Can I help you?" she asks, her dress short enough to reveal her knees. You shake your head. "Just looking." She grins. "Well, if you know any young ladies, we just got the newest flapper dresses from New York. They're selling out fast." The word flapper, once used for awkward teenagers, now defines a cultural revolution. These women cut their hair short, wear bold makeup, drink illegal alcohol, smoke cigarettes, and dance to wild new jazz rhythms. Outside, you pass a newsstand. Headlines scream about prohibition raids, Babe Ruth's baseball feats, booming automobile sales, and the ongoing fight for women to claim real political power despite winning the vote in 1920. But the magazine covers grab your attention most. Illustrations of confident, short-haired, stylish women who've become the icons of this new era. America in 1922 feels suspended between worlds. old traditions colliding with modern freedom. Around one corner, you hear upbeat music from an open doorway advertising dance lessons. Curiosity pulls you inside, where an instructor demonstrates fast, syncopated steps on a polished wooden floor. No, 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 he claps, correcting the students. The Charleston is all in the knees and ankles. Twist, bounce, swing. The dance is unlike anything you've seen before. Sharp and rhythmic, alive with energy. A young woman by the door invites you to join. Hesitant but intrigued, you step forward. Soon, you're lined up with the others, trying to mimic the moves. It's harder than it looks. The feet twist inward and out while the knees knock, arms swinging opposite to the legs. Next to you, a woman named Dorothy nails the steps with effortless grace, her short dress giving her the freedom traditional fashion never allowed. This is when it clicks. Fashion itself had to evolve for dances like this to exist. Catching your breath, you ask Dorothy where the Charleston came from. She leans in, lowering her voice. Started with black dancers in Harlem, she says, showing a few polished moves. Now everyone's doing it. My parents hate it. They say it's indecent. She grins. That's why I love it. The dance, like jazz itself, was born in black communities before spreading into white mainstream culture, often stripped of its origins, but never its raw energy. Later, Dorothy invites you to a dance hall where a live jazz band is playing. The place is alive, packed with young people doing the foxtrot, the shimmy, and of course, the Charleston. Dorothy's friends gather around, all with bobbed hair, cigarettes in hand, and slang on their lips. That band's the cat's meow, one gushes. Absolutely, Jake, another replies. Dorothy grabs your arm. Don't be a flat tire. Come on, let's show them what we learned. The dances grow bolder. The black bottom, even more suggestive than the Charleston, is taking off. The shimmy shocks traditionalists, and wild moves like the bunny hug, grizzly bear, and turkey trot challenge Victorian sensibilities. These aren't just dances, they're physical declarations of freedom, especially for women once confined by corsets and rigid decorum. By the end of the night, you notice something extraordinary. Though most dancers are white, a small group of black couples shares the floor. A quiet but powerful challenge to the segregation that dominates American life. Jazz and dancing are creating rare spaces where the old rules start to break. During a break, Dorothy introduces you to Evelyn, a young secretary at an advertising firm. Can you believe I make enough to afford my own apartment? She says proudly. My mother keeps telling me to find a husband, but why would I? I'm having too much fun. Evelyn represents another cultural shift, economic independence. After World War I, more women entered the workforce than ever before, working as secretaries, shop assistants, and telephone operators. While pay inequality persists and marriage still forces many to quit, for the first time, single women can support themselves, and they're savoring their freedom. This new economic freedom sparked a wave of social independence. With their own incomes, young women could now choose how to dress, where to go, and whom to associate with. Traditional ideas of courtship and marriage began shifting as women gained greater control over their lives and bodies. My grandmother couldn't even vote, Dorothy says as you both sit out a dance, watching the crowd. Now we can vote, make our own money, and dance the Charleston. She lifts her drink in a playful toast. But not everyone celebrated these changes. Newspapers and magazines warned of the flapper menace and the supposed moral collapse of America's youth. Religious leaders condemned the new dances as sinful, schools banned bobbed hair and short skirts, and parents feared their daughters were being corrupted by modern influences. An article in the Atlantic Monthly in 1920 even mocked flappers, describing them as women who trot like foxes, limp like lame ducks, one step like cripples, and all to the barbaric yorp of strange instruments. Yet criticism only fueled the movement's appeal. The more elders disapproved, the more young women embrace their new freedoms. As midnight nears, the energy in the dance hall only grows. The band plays faster, dancers move wildly, and laughter fills the air, a joyful rebellion against old norms. Dorothy grabs your hand and pulls you back to the floor. "This one's my favorite," she shouts over the music. The Charleston reaches its peak, hundreds of feet stomping and twisting in perfect rhythm as the trumpet blasts a solo that sends the crowd into a frenzy. In that moment, it becomes clear why the older generation is alarmed. This isn't just dancing, it's a cultural revolution unfolding on the floor. These young men and women are rejecting Victorian restraint and embracing modern freedom, moving their bodies in ways once considered scandalous. By 1922, dance halls had become central to American culture. They were where young people socialized, where jazz thrived, where fashion trends debuted, and where old and new values clashed. From small-town pavilions to massive urban ballrooms, these spaces shaped the spirit of the Roaring Twenties. When the song ends, the crowd erupts in applause. You're breathless and exhilarated. Dorothy fans herself, grinning. Isn't it the berries? My mother would faint if she saw me right now. For many young women, shocking their parents was the point. The flapper was more than just a fashion trend. She symbolized independence. By cutting her hair, shortening her skirts, and dancing until dawn, she declared her right to live life on her own terms. Still, the reality was more nuanced. Most women weren't full-fledged flappers. Many adopted parts of the style, a bobbed haircut, a daring dress, while living relatively traditional lives. A young woman might work as a shop clerk or secretary by day, dance the Charleston on Saturday night, and still attend church with her parents on Sunday morning. American society in the 1920s wasn't entirely transformed. It was fractured, caught between tradition and modernity. In the dance hall, you notice the mix. True flappers like Dorothy, well-dressed young men seeking excitement, working-class guys saving up for a night out, older couples trying to keep pace, and stern chaperones watching warily from the sidelines. You've got to come to a house party next weekend, Dorothy says during a break. Mabel's parents are out of town, and she's got a Victrola with all the newest records. The phonograph was changing leisure culture, allowing people to bring jazz into their homes. Any living room could now become a dance floor. Soon, radio would amplify this transformation, broadcasting music nationwide. We're teaching everyone the black bottom, Dorothy adds with a mischievous grin. It's wilder than the Charleston. She demonstrates a shimmy, sliding her hips and stomping her feet. The dance, originating in black Southern communities, had just crossed into mainstream white culture, often sanitized but still provocative enough to scandalize traditionalists. My brother says all this dancing will lead to society's downfall, she laughs. He wants us to play chess instead. You ask what she thinks. I think we've seen enough war. Life's too short not to have fun. This carefree spirit defined the youth of the 1920s. The trauma of World War I had shattered faith in authority and proper behavior, inspiring many to seek pleasure, freedom, and excitement while they could. As the band shifts to a slower tune, couples take the floor for a foxtrot, smooth, graceful, and less wild than the Charleston. Dorothy is whisked away by a young man in a sharp suit, leaving you to reflect on how much social life has changed. Before the 1920s, young women rarely went out dancing unchaperoned. Courtship was carefully managed by families, churches, and social traditions. Now, dating, a brand new concept, was replacing formal rituals. Automobiles added another layer of freedom. Cars gave couples privacy for intimate moments that would have been nearly impossible a generation earlier. Parking became common, and advice columns openly debated just how far was too far. The term making out entered the cultural vocabulary. By midnight, the dance hall is still buzzing. The band speeds up, the dancing grows wilder, and laughter echoes as people push the night further. Dorothy returns, flushed and breathless, dragging you back for a shimmy. It's easy, she laughs, shaking her shoulders rapidly while her pearls bounce wildly. You try to imitate her, feeling ridiculous but swept up in the infectious rhythm. Around you, dozens join in, some graceful, some chaotic, but everyone lost in the beat. This was the essence of jazz-age dance culture, participatory, free, and open to anyone willing to try. Unlike rigid ballroom traditions, jazz dances invited spontaneity, creativity, and individuality. Even intimacy on the dance floor was shifting. Couples danced closer than ever before, blurring old rules about public behavior and sexuality. Critics blamed many things: the war, movies, jazz music itself. Whatever the cause, one thing was certain: American youth were breaking away from the past. By 2 a.m., the band announces one last Charleston. The remaining dancers give it everything they have, their movements wild and untamed. The energy is electric, the rebellion palpable. This is the jazz age distilled, fast, free, and unstoppable. As the final note rings out, applause erupts. Dorothy fans herself, glowing with excitement. Wasn't that the cat's pajamas? She laughs, already planning the next outing. A late-night diner run awaits, another chance to extend the night's freedom into the early hours. Young people roam the city without supervision, claiming the streets as their own. Outside, cars idle, laughter fills the sidewalks, and someone hums the Charleston as the group dances down the street. Even the policeman on the corner just shakes his head. 1922 is changing everything, and there's no stopping it. The next morning, after sleeping off the wild night, you decide to explore another slice of 1920s life, the rise of spectator sports. The buzz in Chicago is all about today's baseball game between the White Sox and the Yankees. Babe Ruth, the Yankees' newest star, is in town, and fans are flooding Comiskey Park. The streets are alive with excitement. Men in straw boaters and women in stylish dresses hurry toward the stadium, children darting between them. Baseball has become America's favorite pastime, uniting people from all walks of life. You grab a 50-cent ticket and find your seat on the wooden bleachers. Vendors shout about peanuts, popcorn, and Coca-Cola. The field below glows a brilliant green. Unlike the speakeasies and dance halls, this is a family-friendly gathering, but not without its secrets. A few men discreetly pass pocket flasks, proving prohibition hasn't stopped anyone. "First time?" asks the man beside you, scoring the game in a little notebook. You nod. He smiles. "You picked a good one. The Babe's on fire this season." George Herman Babe Ruth has transformed baseball and America's idea of entertainment in just a few short years. The Saturday Evening Post displays a Norman Rockwell cover, his artwork capturing idealized visions of American life. Rockwell's illustrations, along with those of other popular artists, are becoming cultural landmarks, blending documentation and myth, portraying everyday moments as both familiar and aspirational. Americans see themselves reflected in these images, sometimes realistically, sometimes through a romanticized lens, but always in a way that captivates. Continuing your stroll, you pass a warmly lit bookstore still open for evening browsers. In the window, bestsellers of the year are proudly displayed: Sinclair Lewis's Babbitt, F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Beautiful and Damned, and Agatha Christie's The Secret Adversary. Literature in the 1920s is as lively and varied as every other cultural medium, where modernist experimentation thrives alongside traditional storytelling and wildly popular genre fiction. A little further down the street, a crowd gathers outside a brightly illuminated shop. Curious, you peer through the glass and find people huddled around a demonstration of the latest marvel, the radio. An attendant adjusts the dials while voices and music pour invisibly from the air, leaving the crowd wide-eyed with wonder. For many, this is their very first encounter with such technology. Their faces a mixture of confusion and excitement. "It's tuned to KDKA from Pittsburgh," the attendant explains, the nation's first commercial radio station, which made history in 1920 by broadcasting the Harding-Cox presidential election results. By 1922, radio stations are popping up across the country, though regulations are still catching up. The Radio Act of 1927 will eventually bring order to the rapidly expanding industry, establishing the Federal Radio Commission, the forerunner of today's FCC, and defining how the airwaves are managed. Continuing your evening walk, you encounter another crowd gathered outside a different kind of storefront. Through the large windows, rows of telephones are visible inside. It's a public telephone center where people can make long-distance calls without installing expensive home service. Like radio, telephones are transforming social life, shrinking distances, and creating new ways for Americans to connect. The day has been a whirlwind tour of American entertainment in 1922. From the excitement of baseball to the communal magic of cinema and the revolutionary promise of broadcasting, a new leisure culture is emerging. Americans now enjoy more free time, more disposable income, and far more choices in how to spend both. As night deepens, you're drawn to another movie palace, even grander than the first. The marquee announces a special screening of Nosferatu, the German expressionist horror masterpiece by F.W. Murnau. This unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula has just reached American shores, bringing with it bold European cinematic techniques. Inside, the theater is a Gothic fantasy of arched ceilings, twisting columns, and dramatic lighting, perfectly suited to the haunting story about to unfold. The crowd here is different from the families laughing at Harold Lloyd's comedies earlier in the day. These are sophisticated urbanites, art students, and European immigrants drawn by the film's aesthetic pedigree. You settle into your seat, the lights dim, and a low, eerie melody emerges from the theater's grand organ. The film begins with ornate Gothic title cards setting the mood. Then he appears, Count Orlok, the sinister stand-in for Dracula, played by Max Schreck. His unnaturally thin frame, claw-like fingers, and rat-like features create an image of pure menace, unlike anything seen in American cinema. Shadows and light are manipulated to heighten dread, while experimental camera angles, distorted perspectives, and innovative uses of negative space create an otherworldly atmosphere. This is not mere entertainment. It's cinema as art, pushing the boundaries of what film can achieve. What's striking is how film audiences themselves have evolved. In just 2 decades, viewers have developed a remarkable visual literacy. They now understand the language of cinema, how a close-up signals emotional intensity, how cross-cutting builds suspense, and how lighting sculpts mood. Foreign films like Nosferatu represent one branch of cinema's rapid growth, while American studios pursue their own artistic ambitions, crafting the genre conventions and star-driven productions that will define Hollywood's golden age. Directors like D.W. Griffith, Cecil B. DeMille, and Erich von Stroheim are pioneering a new model, film as a director's medium, where personal vision drives technical innovation. As Count Orlok dissolves in sunlight during the film's climactic ending, you reflect on how movies have reshaped human experience. They allow audiences to travel across worlds, to witness history, explore distant lands, and enter realms of fantasy impossible in reality. Cinema has become a shared dream, a collective expression of society's hopes and fears, projected in flickering light and shadow. When the credits end, you step outside with the buzzing crowd. The city is still alive. Jazz drifts from a nearby dance hall. Automobiles cruise past with headlights glinting off polished buildings, and newspaper vendors hawk late editions on street corners. Drawn by the sound of music, you wander toward a radio shop where a loudspeaker in the window broadcasts a live orchestra from a hotel ballroom across town. The sound is thin and scratchy, interrupted by bursts of static, but the crowd is spellbound. Music without musicians, voices without bodies. Pure magic. An elderly man nearby shakes his head in amazement. "When I was a boy," he says softly, "the church's magic lantern show was the biggest wonder we had. And now, voices out of thin air, movies that look real." He chuckles. What'll they think of next? It's a question on everyone's mind, because the 1920s are moving at breathtaking speed. Each year brings new technologies, new forms of entertainment, and new ways of connecting across distances. Public and private life are intertwining. Mass media is shaping shared national experiences, while celebrity culture is redefining social hierarchies, fame and charisma replacing wealth and heritage as markers of status. Heading home, your thoughts swirl with the day's impressions: the crack of Babe Ruth's bat, Harold Lloyd's comedic stunts, Count Orlok's chilling silhouette, and the ghostly voices whispering through the radio. These are all fragments of an entertainment revolution, where leisure is being reimagined and American life reinvented. The sports stadium, the movie palace, and the radio set are more than sources of amusement. They're cultural laboratories, testing what modern society can become. Tomorrow, you decide, you'll explore stranger fads sweeping the nation. Flagpole sitting, dance marathons, crossword competitions, maybe even the booming automobile culture reshaping cities and lifestyles. In this era of invention, the possibilities seem endless. Later, passing a newsstand, a headline grabs your attention. "Man sits atop flagpole for 13th hour." Intrigued, you buy the paper and learn about Aloysius Shipwreck Kelly, a former sailor and Hollywood stuntman perched high above a Los Angeles street in 1924. The article explains that Kelly, nicknamed for his frequent shipwrecks and boxing knockouts, accepted a dare to sit atop a flagpole, unknowingly sparking a nationwide craze. Crowds gather beneath him, marveling at the bizarre spectacle, while businesses rush to hire him for publicity stunts. The 1920s, you realize, are not just about jazz, baseball, and movies. They're also an age of eccentric obsessions and extreme leisure. Americans are hungry for novelty, testing the limits of endurance and imagination alike. Rounding the corner, you spot a massive banner stretched across a building. Dance Marathon, Day 3. Intrigued, you pay the 25-cent admission and step inside. The air is thick with smoke, perfume, and exhaustion. A ring of spectators crowds the dance floor, where about a dozen couples shuffle mechanically, barely clinging to consciousness. Sweat-stained, wrinkled clothes cling to their bodies. Many women have kicked off their heels, and men have loosened collars and ties. How long have they been at it? You ask a man near the door. 72 hours straight, he replies, checking his pocket watch. Started Saturday at 8. 15-minute breaks every hour. Food while dancing, but they can't stop moving or they're out. Dance marathons emerged in the early 1920s, inspired by Alma Cummings, a 32-year-old instructor who danced for 27 straight hours in 1923, wearing out 6 partners and capturing national headlines. Soon, others raced to break her record, and by 1924, marathons evolved into elaborate public spectacles. Professional promoters organized events, charging admission and offering cash prizes to the last couple standing. For now, they're thrilling entertainment, but during the coming Great Depression, these contests will turn darker as desperate participants dance for food, shelter, and survival. Tonight, though, the mood remains electric, a mix of exhaustion, determination, and drama. Suddenly, the announcer, megaphone in hand, steps onto the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for the hourly sprint. The orchestra snaps from languid waltzes into a furious Charleston, forcing the dancers to kick and twist at full speed. Some rally, summoning hidden reserves of energy. Others stumble, barely keeping upright. The crowd cheers wildly, rooting for their favorites. After 10 grueling minutes, the whistle blows and the music slows. Dancers sag back into their weary shuffles, clinging to consciousness. Judges roam the floor, ensuring no one dares to stop moving. We started with 30 couples Saturday, says a woman beside you. Down to 11 now. My sister's boyfriend's still in. It's the tall one in the blue shirt. You spot him, head bobbing, eyelids heavy, his partner practically holding him upright. What's the prize? You ask. $500, she replies, eyes bright. Last couple standing takes it all. A silver trophy and $500. In 1924, that's a small fortune, worth several months' wages for the average worker. It's no wonder these dancers push their bodies beyond endurance, risking exhaustion and injury for a chance at such a reward. Suddenly, a loud buzzer blares, and the announcer calls, "Break time! Contestants, you have 15 minutes." Immediately, the dancers separate, many collapsing onto cots arranged around the edges of the floor. Trainers rush in with water, food, and quick medical care. Cramped legs are massaged, blistered feet bandaged, and exhausted contestants urged to keep going. The atmosphere feels like a boxing ring between rounds. Each dancer has a support team working frantically to revive them during this short reprieve. Someone explains that lying down is forbidden. Contestants may sit on the cots, but if they stretch out or fall asleep, they're immediately disqualified. Around you, some dancers gulp down sandwiches and soup as though starved, while others sit in silence, too drained to eat. Doctors weave between them, checking pulses and inspecting injuries, ensuring no one collapses completely. Too soon, the buzzer sounds again. Back on the floor, the announcer calls. Groaning, the dancers rise, staggering toward their partners. The music resumes and the relentless marathon continues. Uneasy but fascinated, you finally step outside. Night has fully descended, and though quieter now, Chicago still hums with energy. In the 1920s, the city rarely sleeps. Prohibition has pushed entertainment underground, making after-hours life vibrant and unpredictable. Passing a storefront, you pause at an elegant display, carved wooden racks, polished counters, and intricately designed tiles. A sign proudly reads, "Max Games Mahjong sets just arrived from China." Mahjong, you've heard, is the latest national obsession. Imported and popularized in 1922 by entrepreneur Joseph P. Babcock, the game has become a sensation within 2 short years, especially among women's social circles. Department stores can't keep up with demand, offering sets ranging from simple, affordable versions to luxurious hand-carved ivory tiles presented in polished rosewood cases. Books explaining the rules, Titles like The Red Book of Mahjong and Mahjong for Beginners sit beside the sets. The craze goes beyond the game itself. It's shaping an entire aesthetic. Women host Chinese-themed mahjong parties, decorating homes with paper lanterns, serving exotic refreshments, and even wearing silk robes inspired by Chinese fashion. Yet beneath the fascination, there's little genuine understanding of Chinese culture. It's cultural appropriation packaged as entertainment, driven by America's love for the mysterious and foreign. The store is closed now, but you make a note to return. Home entertainment is changing rapidly. Families that once gathered around for conversation or simple card games now have a growing variety of pastimes, board games, radios, phonograph records, and even the earliest electronic amusements. Further along, you find another storefront. This one is darker, its window displaying a strange wooden board covered with letters and numbers beneath a bold sign, genuine Ouija boards, communicate with the beyond. The Ouija craze, which began in the late 19th century, has resurged after World War I. With millions dead, grief-stricken families long for contact with lost loved ones. Spiritualism, the belief that the dead can communicate with the living, returned to popularity, and Ouija boards became its most accessible tool. By the mid-1920s, they're a fixture at social gatherings. For some, a spooky party game. For others, a serious attempt to reach the spirit world. Turning onto a livelier street, you encounter a group of boisterous young men in raccoon coats, the unofficial uniform of wealthy college students. Laughing loudly, one shouts, "I'm telling you, Jenkins swallowed 3 goldfish, won $5 from the Phi Delt boys." Goldfish swallowing, a bizarre college fad, is just beginning. Campuses across the country have become breeding grounds for strange competitions, flagpole sitting, marathon dancing, phone booth cramming, and other absurd stunts. These trends reflect a growing youth culture in the 1920s. With record numbers attending universities and post-war social norms relaxing, students carve out their own rebellious identities. The raccoon coat, expensive yet impractical, becomes a status symbol among these privileged circles. The young men wander off, still debating Jenkins' feat, and you continue exploring. Soon, a warm glow spills from the windows of a coffee house. Unlike the secretive speakeasies, this establishment welcomes all. Inside, the mood is bohemian. Intellectuals, artists, and freethinkers gather at small tables under a haze of cigarette smoke. Classical music drifts softly from a phonograph, creating space for lively discussion. You find a seat and order coffee. Nearby, conversations buzz with literature, politics, and philosophy. A group debates Fitzgerald's latest novel, while another argues over Cubism versus Expressionism. At the next table, 4 people are hunched over a crossword puzzle, their graph paper filled with interlocking words. 7-letter word for ridiculous, one woman muses, tapping her pencil. 3rd letter's S. Absurd, offers her companion. Nope, 6 letters. Asinine. Someone exclaims. Perfect. They fill it in triumphantly. Crossword puzzles, invented in 1913 by journalist Arthur Wynne, exploded into national popularity by the mid-1920s. Books of puzzles are bestsellers. Dictionaries are constantly checked out from libraries, and commuters solve them on trains. A formal tournament will debut in 1925, but informal contests like this one are already common. Crosswords represent a new kind of leisure, an intellectual challenge that can be both solitary and social. As you sip your coffee, you notice something else, the distinct slang filling the room. Young people in the 1920s have invented an entirely new vocabulary, drawn from jazz culture and prohibition nightlife. That movie was The Cat's Pajamas, someone says. Absolutely, Jake, replies a friend. Don't be such an owl, teases another, urging him to stay out longer. Phrases like bee's knees, juice joint, hooch, drugstore cowboy, and banks closed, meaning no more kissing, mark a generational divide. Language itself becomes rebellion. Like fashion and dance, slang signals the youthful spirit of experimentation and independence. Finishing your coffee, you head back outside. Through glowing windows on quiet streets, you glimpse families gathered around radios, a novelty rapidly becoming essential. Others sit at tables playing board games, classics like chess, checkers, and backgammon, alongside new favorites like Sorry and Chinese checkers. Companies like Parker Brothers and Milton Bradley thrive as home entertainment explodes. Suddenly, shouts draw you toward an empty lot, where a crowd surrounds an ongoing walkathon. Contestants pace endlessly around a marked track, watched closely by judges. Like dance marathons, they're granted brief rests but must otherwise keep moving. Some have been walking for 4 straight days, their bodies near collapse. Who's leading? Someone asks. That couple, the tall man and the blonde, a spectator whispers. 96 hours nonstop. Walkathons, dance marathons, and flagpole sitting. These endurance contests reveal a deeper truth about 1920s America. In an era celebrating speed, efficiency, and mechanization, these events glorify human persistence. Machines may outpace workers in speed and productivity, but people prove they can endure, showcasing qualities technology cannot: willpower, resilience, and sheer determination. Spectators cheer wildly as one exhausted couple completes another lap, their faces lit with both empathy and thrill. It's the paradox of these events. They celebrate human strength while exploiting human vulnerability. Continuing on, you pass a building buzzing with activity. A crossword championship is underway. Inside, contestants race against the clock to complete giant puzzles while judges verify answers. Miss Adelaide Jenkins, 7 minutes, 22 seconds. A new county record, announces the moderator. The crowd erupts in applause as Jenkins, modest but proud, bows slightly. Crossword tournaments push the mind as dance marathons test the body. Both embody the decade's obsession with records, extremes, and surpassing boundaries. By now, the night has grown late. The city has quieted, though hidden speakeasies still hum behind curtained doors. Walking toward your lodging, you reflect on the day's discoveries. Baseball stadiums, movie palaces, crossword tournaments, radio parties, dance marathons, mahjong nights, Ouija seances, and endurance stunts. The 1920s leisure landscape is astonishingly diverse. Some activities like cinema and baseball will become American institutions. Others, like flagpole sitting, walkathons, and goldfish swallowing, will fade into quirky footnotes of history. Yet all reflect the spirit of the era: energy, experimentation, and a fascination with extremes. At a final newsstand, a headline catches your eye: Shipwreck Kelly still atop flagpole, 24 hours and counting. In the years ahead, Kelly will become a household name, eventually sitting 49 days straight atop a pole in 1930. Others will follow, enduring rain, heat, and freezing nights to achieve fame through sheer persistence. As you finally reach your room, your mind swirls with images. Flagpole sitters silhouetted against the sky, exhausted dancers shuffling endlessly, crossword champions racing the clock, raccoon-coated students laughing on street corners. These fragments together form a vivid portrait of 1920s America, a society hungry for connection, excitement, and meaning in an age of transformation. Tomorrow, you plan to explore the next revolution, the rise of the automobile culture, reshaping geography, freedom, and social life. But for tonight, you rest, carrying with you the extraordinary spectacles and peculiar pastimes of an age inventing new ways to play, compete, and dream. The Roaring Twenties, with all its sparkle and energy, also carried a playful spirit, an openness to the absurd, and a celebration of achievements pursued purely for the sake of accomplishment. This captures one of the era's lasting legacies: the recognition that leisure isn't simply the absence of work, but a space for creativity, connection, exploration, and meaning through play. While technologies evolve and fads rise and fade, this truth endures. How we spend our free time shapes us just as much as how we earn our living. Morning sunlight slips softly through your window, warming the room with golden patterns. Unlike the cold, cramped boarding house where your journey began, you now find yourself in a modest yet comfortable hotel. Today, you've decided to leave behind Chicago's bustling energy to explore another transformative force shaping 1920s American leisure: the rise of automobile culture, a phenomenon redefining how people travel, live, socialize, and experience the country. After breakfast in the hotel's dining room, you step outside into a lively street. What immediately stands out is the sheer number of automobiles. In just a few short years, cars have gone from rare luxuries to everyday sights. Model Ts, Chevrolets, and Packards glide through the streets, their steady hum creating the soundtrack of modern American life. On the corner, a man leans casually against a shiny black Ford Model T, a small sign reading "For Hire" propped in the window. He spots you and calls out, "Need a ride? Finest automobile service in town." Curious, you approach. "How much to take me to the edge of town?" you ask. "I'd like to see the countryside." $1.50, he replies confidently, "and worth every cent. These new roads make for a smooth ride the whole way." The 1920s marked the dawn of